Alright, we are live. Blast them socials.
Go. Share to the Book of Faces. Share to the Twatter. We are shared.
Liver now.
All right.
We're gonna play with a new toy live, sort of. I got a chat box that I wanted to occupy some unused space, but... No, wait.
Cool.
So...
Morality.
greatest show ever. Okay, and we're back. We read Rave why Silo's the greatest show ever, and then why Star Trek DS9 is the greatest Star Trek ever, as well as some drama at Lucasfilm. All this coming right now on The Writer Brothers! And welcome back to your Tuesday night home for Silo and really amazing Star Trek. I am, of course, your host, Petey York, joined by the ever so lovely Mr. Corione, Witch in Residence. The also equally, yet somehow differently lovely Mr. Scogliotin, not Witch in Residence. And, of course, H. Marie. Pollo Zapatos could not join us tonight because, well, he posted one of the dumbest things that I have ever seen. And Rancor Steve in the chat says, howdy y'all. Howdy, Rancor Steve. Thanks for stopping by. Good to see you.
Good, Steve.
Earlier today, Pollo Zapatos, earlier this week, Pollo Zapatos posted something that was just grotesquely disgusting. And of course, because it affected me, I now have to share this horribleness with all of you. And that is the most disgusting thing that I could imagine eating ever. And I've eaten a freaking gerbil. It's like...
Well, never mind.
What?
This is refined.
I was wondering if I wanted the gerbil story, and then I realized I really didn't want the gerbil story.
I was in Peru. I also ate a llama.
You know,
It's the-
just like Richard Gere, I don't want the gerbil story.
Yeah, I know. It's Breakfast of Champions is what this was titled, and if it's what you're into, all right, we'll go ahead and welcome Mr. Pollo Zapatos back to the panel for giving us something to make fun of him about. Rancor Steve writes in, reminds me of college
I thought
night.
that was so funny.
Yeah, so we got fan mail from Rancor Steve. He writes in, reminds me of college nights after that bars. Just kidding. Or am I? Who knows? Rancor Steve, there's actually been some times where I've gone out and I find stuff in my kitchen and I'm like, oh, I was that hungry. Okay. Anyway.
You see, I don't know. I might be the only guy who, I'll wake up after a night of drinking and go into the kitchen to find, this really nicely, well thought out, well set up sandwich with a little note, hey, sober Mike, or hey, sober Corione, you thought you might need this, signed drunk Corione, right? I guess drunk me is just nicer to, sober me.
I wish I could say the same thing. We don't need to get into that
Nope.
right now. Anyway,
This guy works.
Corione, we've got some
Ooh,
stuff to
boy.
discuss, hot off the press today. Some Disney drama to get into.
Yeah, to say
And-
there's
Yeah.
to say there's a lot going on at
I'm-
Disney would be an understatement, my friend.
Well, we'll
Okay.
hand it over to you, and you can go ahead and give us your little monologue intro to the news, and we'll discuss.
All right, so this comes from both friends of the channel, Dictor Van Doomcock, and of course the great and powerful Cameron Pasha. So Doomcock this morning reported that he had received word from a leaker that Disney's financials look to be in serious trouble, and they may be looking to sell off either some property or a location or something in order to be able to make up the losses of funds that they've been looking at. And then Cameron Pasha got a call from Sparrow, his inside source inside Lucasfilm, who had been reporting that there have been some weird things going on inside the lawyers for Lucasfilm in dealing with the Disney head office. And today he finally found out what the weird conversations were. They're talking about potentially selling Lucasfilm to someone that they've only identified as the buyer. There was further discussion that made it sound like they may be selling off Euro Disney to a different buyer.
Yeah, real quick, sorry to interrupt your monologue. We do have a, well, not technically a first-time viewer, but I believe first-time commenter. Tiny but Fierce says, hail in chat. Hail to you as well. Welcome. Good to see you. All right, and now, back to you.
Oh, well, thank you. So the buyer is never identified in any of the information, but given that Sparrow believes it's a single individual, that could very well mean that George Lucas is looking to repurchase Lucasfilm back from Disney. Additionally, we have no idea who could potentially be buying other Disney property off, like the other Disney parks, not the two main ones, but the ones overseas. But there's a lot of discussion about this as to who that could be. There's a lot
I'm
of
sorry.
craziness
I got a thought that's coming to mind. So you're suggesting that there's a possibility? So when you said Lucas might be buying back Star Wars,
yeah,
that
Lucasfilm.
just got me thinking. Really just here for a second, because let's think of everything that's happened in that where we're at now with Star Wars. Iger convinces Lucas to reluctantly give up Star Wars. Okay, he does. Iger brags about it. Lucas wasn't happy with that decision. We know this because you have $4 billion. If I was in Lucas, I'm sorry, this is how I used to feel. I don't anymore, and I'll say why. I used to think that if I sold my intellectual property for $4 billion, you know what I'm going to do? You're never going to hear from me again aside from, Petey York rented way too many hookers in Blow and some stupid rager orgy in Italy or some shit. And probably not. But the point is, I'm not going to go back to the set of the show of the thing that I moved on from. Because I have $4 billion. I don't need to care about Star Wars anymore. Why do I care if I have money? Because it's not about the money. It's about selling your soul. And that's what Lucas did, is he sold his soul. And that's what I realized. Well, I used to joke like Galaxia's intellectual property rights are starting at $80 million and we go up. No, I'm not ever going to sell it at this point. Because if George Lucas wasn't happy selling Star Wars for $4 billion, the lesson here, guys, is do not sell your soul unless you are for sure ready to move on. And he wasn't.
Remember that picture?
But
right after he just signed the contract and he looked over and somebody snapped the picture, that look on his face. Like,
exactly.
Whoa.
Exactly. And that's the thing I'm starting to think. Okay, Lucas shows up on set of Mandalorian season 1 and I think season 2, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay.
You are correct, sir.
He wasn't there on season 3. So season 3 is just kind of left floundering on its own, and we saw what happened there. I personally wasn't too impressed, and I mean, there were things I did like. The composites, the visuals were probably some of the best that sci-fi has seen in a minute, although Silo's doing pretty good too. But
right.
It's the fact that... Oh. You have a thought? Oh, no, sorry. Way your hand's sitting. I thought you were raising your hand, Corion. My bad.
No.
But we know that he and Timothy Zahn were working closely on Ahsoka. And if Disney's valuation is so bad, or not, excuse me, if Lucasfilm's valuation is now so bad, well, Disney's valuation's bad too, but if Lucasfilm has gone down so much and Lucas might be buying it back, what an epic Return of the Jedi moment would he be if he buys it for less than $1 billion because the property value is so low. So not only does he make money off of selling it to Disney in the end, but he comes back, he strikes back and gets control of his baby once more. But this is the real pièce de résistance. With Ahsoka lining up right where it does, if Ahsoka does well and he makes that purchase right before Ahsoka, actually hits and people get raves, right out of the gate, Lucasfilm is worth something else because it'll be under a new owner, and the hype will hopefully be back with Ahsoka being a good show that Lucas can finally just start writing off projects to smaller companies that can start actually giving us the Star Wars anthologies and stories we were supposed to be getting from Disney in the first fucking place.
Well, and let's not forget, if he does make a profit off of the sale, he can now afford to do it again.
Let's do a $1 billion Star Wars TV series and see what happens.
I could see him having the IP back and being like plus $2 billion, something ridiculous.
Well, now keep in mind, I also am going to say this. Okay, there are two things to say here. One, the George Lucas buying it is entirely speculation,
Right, of course.
but this has happened before in the history of Disney. Disney bought the Power Rangers from Hayam Saban, and then Saban wound up buying it back after Disney tanked the franchise
Yeah.
and wound up making money off the sale. And when he took it back over, he turned it once again into a money-making operation. So it would not be unprecedented for something like this to happen.
That'd be great.
Now, is the buyer Bezos? Is the buyer Sony?
Oh man.
We don't know,
Oh,
right?
man.
Like, let's be clear, we don't know. But if anyone was going to buy it, Lucas's name should come up in that discussion. So that's pretty interesting. The other piece, of course, being that Disney's financials are in such rough shape that they're looking to sell off one of the crown jewels.
Well, it's just the absolute staggering losses.
It's not the crown jewel. Like
Paying over
that's
like
the
a
funny
series
thing.
like 10 or 15
I would
movies.
say
It's
it
just
is a
like-
crown jewel. It's just tarnished.
Well, no, so
Star
here's the
Wars,
thing.
like,
Here's the thing. It's not a crown jewel because anybody who owns it doesn't make money off of it. Like, this is proof that, like, you need the creator.
hold on a second. Hold on a second. We still need to keep some factors into mind here. Star Wars is still making money, mostly in merchandise right now. But Star
Right.
Wars still couldn't even collapse. Like, the interest in toys like Legos and action figures has not died, regardless of what the movies and the shows have done. So,
Well, okay, like that is one portion of it, but also like the bad PR. Like Disney keeps getting ripped apart for trying again and
That's
failing
true.
again, and not being it. Like they're just kind of more like this is the ugly stepchild. And I think like really what's going on here is that like it's proof that like we need these writers, we need these content creators that actually take the time to think these things out, think about what the whole thing means to each little element.
Right, the
And
ending.
then that way, like us, the fans, like to us, it is 100% a crown jewel. Nothing's wrong with Star Wars. Like there is always going to be bad Star Wars stories, just like there's always going to be bad Star Trek stories. Like that's inevitable when you let other people play with somebody else's toy.
Yeah.
But
like all the times you played with my Legos and ruined all the battles and stuff I had planned for the afternoon. I come in, from school. Yeah. You think I'm actually ever gonna let you live that down? We're gonna be like sitting on whatever. Like 30 years from now, we're still gonna be hitting each other with old man sticks doing this,
bro,
making lightsaber noises.
Socks filled.
There were times
with
when
Legos.
you would hope for the battle to last like the weekend away. And be
Of
like,
course.
no, I have nothing to do on a Saturday. And yours
Except
were all
ruin my
built.
fun.
Mine were broken.
Rancor Steve writes in, no director will touch Star Wars until things get fixed, and no one is buying Star Wars. Star Wars Legos, maybe. Yeah, actually, and I should clarify, that is I'm more on the Lego side of the house when it comes to Star Wars, so I actually don't know the action figure
And
sales
I think
these
when
days.
I think when we're talking about Star Wars sales, we are specifically talking about non-sequel trilogy merch.
Sorry, yes. Clarification, it's the legacy Star Wars, 1 through 6, Clone Wars, it's the stuff, and Mandalorian, of course, because, well, Mandalorian felt like classic Star Wars, so
I
who
went
thought?
into Toys R Us and bought a Han Solo and a Lando, and
Yeah, no, that's what they're
Right.
so yeah, no, Rancor Steve is right though. The sequel stuff, the newer, the Kenobi stuff, that has not been selling at all. That's actually what plays into what John is saying, that it's actually detrimental. So they don't have nuance, is pretty
It
much
looks
what that says. It
terrible.
does look bad. Yeah, no, you guys
Okay,
are right.
well, how
You
about
guys are
this then? How about this? It is like if Disney is Thanos, this is like him loaning. Like this is him saying, "Nah, you know what? I really don't need the Reality Stone. You guys take it, right?" Like this is huge, though, right? This is a significant departure. Disney potentially looking to sell one of the theme parks. That's another huge. It's admitting they're in financial trouble statement, right?
Coming soon to Anaheim, Six Flags Magic Kingdom.
Right? This is, yeah, here we go, Rancor Steve. I'm Team Jar Jar, the true Sith Lord. Dude,
Hell yeah.
that would have been
That would've been
by
awesome.
far the best thing that could have happened.
You know what, Riker, Steve, since you brought it up, I'm gonna share my little story about how I came across that theory and why I believe it. So, Lima, Peru, which just so happens to be what I talked about when I ate a gerbil. Lima, Peru. I'm standing watch. We're moored up, and this is back when I'm in the Coast Guard, and I'm just bored. So, of course, the thing to do at 4 o'clock in the morning, well, I got another guy with a gun watching the brow. Like, I'm useless. It's really more of a formality, and everybody's got to stand duty, busy work kind of situation. So, I'm, 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm thinking whatever, and I stumble across, I think on Reddit, I see this Star Wars Darth Jar Jar theory, and I'm like, what the, this is, okay, this should be entertaining. As I started reading it, it was hard to be less convinced of the legitimacy of these claims. Especially when you get to the final piece when it says that Dooku was a great character, don't get me wrong, Christopher Lee was awesome, and I think we could have had a Dooku character in a different capacity, but he was totally just kind of shoved in there, and episode 2 is kind of like one of those, like, you feel like there's some pieces or elements that got changed at the last minute that should have been there. The theory is that Lucas didn't follow through on it because of the bad reception of Jar Jar. What's ironic is that if he had followed through on that theory, everyone would have loved Jar Jar. Like, it would have been such a, oh wow, I feel bad about trashing Jar Jar now. So
it would have been so cool.
So yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, Steve.
Yeah. So this has potentially huge reasons. Now, there's questions as to why Disney would be in this bad a financial strait. Well, let's start with they haven't really had a film success in quite some time. Right?
They could have with Mandalorian Season 3 as a feature film.
Well, at any rate.
Trim the fat in more ways than one.
Yeah, we have that. We have the parks are not pulling their weight. There could be a lot of reasons for that. I personally think a lot of the reason why the parks aren't pulling their weight is they jacked up the prices. Well, no, they jacked up the prices and reduced the quality. And the reason why families used to go is because you could have an incredibly quality, magical vacation with the whole family and everyone would have some fun, right? I'll give you an example. The time that my family went to Disney, my daughter was still very young. She had a whole bunch of stuffed animals. We told her she couldn't take them into the park because, we didn't want the park to think that we had, just snagged stuffed animals. Well, when we came back to our room, the stuffed animals had been arranged on the bed so it looked like they were having a tea party. Right? So my daughter was sitting there going, oh, my stuffies are getting to have fun at Disney too, right? Another time we came back to the room and they were all sitting in front of the TV watching Disney Junior. Right? They went out of their way to make magic.
Yeah, it's a really nice touch, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like it's a Toy Story reference. That's right. That's really cool.
Right. But I mean, that's the kind of thing that you would expect from a Disney experience. And that is gone from the parks now. And in exchange, they're asking you to pay more money. So it's no wonder the parks are kind of, going downhill. So you have those two factors. You have the factor that, they've picked up a lot of bad blood in a lot of different places for either being too woke, not woke enough, or fence sitting. They cannot win as a political entity, and they haven't been able to. Between that and the fact that they've gone through 2 CEOs in very, very short order and had to bring back an old CEO, it doesn't bode well for the company. So there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, and I think the huge kick, to the Lucasfilm nuts, so to speak, is the closing of Star Cruiser, which, to be perfectly honest, I'm still trying to get over that for the simple fact that I'm shocked that they actually pulled the plug on it entirely. Like, I'm just trying to put myself in their position, right? Like, think like if I'm in charge of the park and I've got this asset that we just poured $1 billion into, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change its function. I'm not going to make it a 2-night prison stay with a chance to escape by going down to Mos Eisley, or excuse me, not Mos Eisley, or have they renamed it yet? I don't know. Referencing my comparison video when I did it compared to the Star Trek experience, and I'm going to be honest, that video was a ridiculous comparison, and I really wasn't actually expecting that rhetorical question to get answered, because, wow. I mean, Star Cruiser is a huge failure, and that even just drags the brand down even further. But again, it goes back to the key point. What if Star Cruiser had been a New Hope style experience with your classic characters? What if we,
the throttled linear experience is just unacceptable.
That's the other thing. With the Star Trek experience in Vegas, the Vegas attraction was just the attraction. Your ticket got you in, you got to see the museum, you got to ride the ride as many times as you wanted. And your hotel was not attached to it. Now, that would have been cool, if you had a hotel like the style of the Enterprise D, and I had a whole idea for a new Star Trek experience that I'm going to take up the whole stream talking about. So it's like, if all you have to do is make it function like a normal hotel, and then you can have all these side quest stuff going on for the kids and people that want to get involved in it. And then if you want like a special area for like more intense role players that want to get into it that way, great. But forcing people to sit in a box for 2 days and then just, as you said, having like a straight track of
shuttle
activities.
them around and stuff. This happens now. This happens. No, they come and they get you.
Turn your brain off and consume product. Consume product. Have fun.
You got to leave your room. Like, you
Yeah.
got to come up and participate in this. It's like, you're part of this team. It's like the kids are like, I don't want to be on this team. It's like,
yeah,
you got assigned to that team. You had no choice.
Look, there was a lot wrong with it. There was a lot they could have done right, and they chose not to. And
that's what blows my mind, is that they're not doing anything, though. Like, they're not even trying to pivot the function of it. They're just literally just yanked the plug on $1 billion operation. That's why it lends more credence to these rumors. Is it's like, if they're getting serious about closing assets and shutting stuff down, especially that stuff that's related to the sequels, like, this is not small time moves.
No.
Right, because you'd think they'd just bloody well make it work, but if they're in that dire straits to be closing this.
Well, consider this, guys. 3 companies went in together to create Hulu: Disney, Fox, and Comcast. Okay? When the 3 of them were together and running it, the newspapers were valuing, like the business sections of the newspapers were valuing Hulu at $70 billion. Now, Disney buys Fox. So they're now 2/3 responsible for it. And the deal is, if one of the partners wants out, the other ones have to buy them up. Comcast wants out in 2024. So Disney potentially is on the hook for 1/3 of $70 billion.
Oof.
And there is no way to back out of that deal for them. They have no exit clause built into the agreement. So they would just be on the hook for that 1/3 of $70 billion. It may be that they're desperate enough to sell off some big properties to just not have the overhead expense of running them.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's who knows what exactly is going, but I mean, there's more rumblings.
You just watch the losses pile up over those string of movies they've been making for the last 5 years. You're just like, how is this possible? Like,
well, you want to hear the really scary part?
It's not.
Very, very good friend of this channel, the one, the only, the great Mexican Iron Man, who happens to be an accountant, actually sat down with the publicly available numbers for Disney and figured out that, like, their budget right now, like their available cash on hand, is only probably $200 million.
Yeah.
If they have $200 million available, and they're going to be on the hook for what, 20?
Okay, looks like we're back up. Once again, having more intermittent connectivity issues with YouTube. Not really sure why, but it is what it is.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, all we can do is keep watching this stuff, and it's just, whenever they're ready to come out and say what they're doing, I mean, we'll figure it out from there. I'm willing to give if they give the keys back to George. I mean, I'm obviously back to doing that, and I mean, George put some pretty good people in charge even before he sold Disney, and I mean, just watch Clone Wars.
Yeah.
I mean, it starts out kind of rough. Not the movie. The movie is still the worst Star Wars movie ever made, and I know that you say, well, Last Jedi and Rise of Suckwanker, and I'm like, yeah, no, those are bad too. Clone
Caravan
Wars.
of Courage. Caravan of Courage.
No one knows what that one is, man. Come on. All right. Moving on to the greatest show on television right now. Of course, we'll start with our non-spoiler overview. For those of you who are waiting to see this one and just want to check in to see how we're just kind of feeling without, ruining anything, this is the part where you keep the volume up, and then we will switch to spoiler alert. And then that's the time to mute the stream, and if you don't mind watching the background, that would be appreciated. Until we get to DS9, because we've got a lot to talk about with DS9 coming hot right out of the gate. So, my, still a solid 7 on this show. I cannot praise it enough. This is some top-notch quality writing. I think we're going to need to do the book on this one and do a comparison. Because I could definitely use some ideas and just some nuance myself. But why don't we go around the room? Corione, real quick, non-spoiler overview.
So, for a lot of this episode, it felt like we were in kind of the anticipation moments. We were building up to where the story is going to be going. It felt like we were following up on a lot of leads that were brought up beforehand. We haven't really gotten big resolutions. But, some secrets were exposed. And the characterization of our main character, the sheriff, and the fact that we got some more characterization of her deputy. Right?
Yeah.
No, I'm keeping it reasonable, right? Definitely put things into an interesting place.
Yeah. H. Marie, your initial thoughts on Silo episode 6?
Honestly, I'm just going to wait for the spoiler section. That's just going to be easier.
Fair enough. Skogly, what about you? You've been really enjoying this a lot. Is it still keeping you interested?
Oh, man. Oh, better than ever. It's just, it started with those really, I shouldn't say strong episodes, those like super exciting episodes. And then the next like character building episodes are just fascinating to watch as well. And man, just the nice escalation, the calculated pacing is just I'm on board. This is a great show. I'll be super disappointed if they don't land the ending.
I'll actually be impressed at this point. Like if they go full Foundation and just self-implode like that'll be impressive for another Apple TV series. But this is obviously the ending was thought out before the middle was written, and it's clear that it's very obvious. Pollo Zapatos, what is your initial review of Silo episode 6?
Dude, I enjoyed it. I really think this isn't a spoiler, but this was the first time I had a minor complaint about the world building. And one of the characters said law enforcement agency, as if the Silo has agencies or need for that level of dissection in terms of tiers.
I mean, it probably doesn't, but somebody thinks it does.
Well, no, 140 years post-apocalypse. That was like the one time where I'm like,
I think there's a reason.
All your other words have been on point, but for to just say enforcement agency, and I'll get more into it during the spoilers because it was a really good scene overall. But
definitely.
That's like the one hang up with the world building so far. 6 episodes in, and I have one minor word choice that I would consider a question mark. Like, let's see a history of agencies at some point. Maybe they devolved. I don't know.
All right. Well, then in that case, it sounds like you guys are ready to get into the meat and potatoes. So let's just get into that by going to spoiler alert. I'm gonna go last on this because the thing for me was the final. I mean, I know that's. I know. But there's so much more that's got like this show. Screw it. I'll go first. This show is like what Lost thought it was. Which Lost, by the way, is just less funny, random British humor for those who don't know. This is exactly what we thought we were getting with Lost. So if you like Lost and were disappointed by the ending, stay tuned. I'll get back to you. It's rare that a show is able to just be so good up to a point where I'm like, I got this, and I like what I've got so far. We'll see how it ends, and of course, give everybody our honest take. If we end up hating, I'm not going to wish that into existence. I'm sorry. So I really like how this show progresses by answering a question and then finding a way to create like 5 more. And then letting those 5 questions just, some of them just kind of go to the back of the wayside, but then come up later. And it's like, this is really good. That's what I can say. What? Go ahead, Corion.
Oh, I was just saying this is just good is probably about the best way you can sum up the whole series, right?
Yep. All right. I'm Peter York, the Writer Brothers. We'll see you next week. Thanks for now. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No. So okay, this episode having us have the backdrop of a quote unquote forgiveness holiday, which we don't really get a detail on what forgiveness holiday looks like, but I'm guessing it's some sort of amnesty program.
Yeah, I was like expecting Purge Light, and I was very glad that wasn't the case as far as we know. It just seemed like you can, I don't know, maybe smoke on the silo or whatever, or, eat food next to a don't eat food here sign and not get in trouble. I don't know. Leave your car parked with an empty meter. Oh, sorry.
No curse, but yeah, no, like I get, or maybe it's like, you're allowed to, there are certain bylaws where you can just ignore it or like, eat your fill or whatever, like no rationing or something. Who knows?
Everyone just walks on whatever side of the silo steps they want. There's no traffic pattern. No, everyone still seemed to be following the traffic pattern. I have no idea what forgiveness holiday was for.
Right. So we don't really know that, but, H. Marie's got something. Did you see a thing that we didn't see?
No, the Forgiveness Day was because people saw the sheriff hanging off the center of the railing during the race, and because she interrupted the race, the silo and whoever, they all wanted to basically have that holiday to go, we're so sorry for ruining this race. We know you guys look forward to it. And also, if you guys have anything that you shouldn't have, you can bring it in and you won't get a penalty. That's
okay.
What the holiday was for.
Okay, H. Marie bringing in the knowledge. Thank you. So we have this as the backdrop to a relic investigation because, the sheriff quite smartly planted a relic in the right spot to kind of force judicial's hand. And that's where I think there are agencies, because we have the police and we have the judicial agencies. So maybe that's where it comes from. That's the only thing I can think of, John. But, she thinks she's got her answers for the most part as to what's going on, and she considers quitting. And the people around her are smart enough to say, no. This rabbit hole goes way deeper. And
I would say she didn't consider quitting because the rabbit hole didn't go deeper. She considered quitting because she realized she was never going to be able to go public until she figured out everything. And she didn't feel like destroying the silo and all of her friends and family. Like, it really felt like she was quitting. Like, this was her one opportunity to go out honorably. And also, like, she got challenged to not,
It's
a
great place to just walk away, and the window was like provided so clearly, right?
Well, and this is an important part of the hero's journey, right? the point of no return.
Yeah, that's exactly what this was. And I got 6 episodes in.
Yeah, 6 episodes in, we're getting to the last little bits of the hero's journey with this character, which means we're coming up on something big, and it's going to be soon.
Well, I get this idea that like this is really the entrance into the dark abyss, like right to that rising tension in the climax. But like, I don't know if you guys noticed this. Like we did say it in previous episodes, but like in this one, the sheriff, like, I wouldn't mind calling her dad. Like she had some like real like sauce, but then she also had that like super stubborn like arrogance, like, no, I'm right. And it was like, dude, you're being a dick.
Yeah, like no, there are points where she's getting that kind of dickish attitude, but for this character it does kind of work.
No, yeah, that's what I mean. That's why I say like she 100% feels like a normal hero on the hero's journey. Like this is typical arrogance that like
you understand you understand the deficiencies and the scars inside that have got her there, though. They've laid that out so well that you're like, you know what? She's she's got these rough edges, but you're like, I like her.
Yeah, no, look,
even then, like
she makes sense,
edges,
right?
Her rough edges aren't like inhuman rough edges, like, oh, I just can't handle all this popularity. Instead, it's literally like, I'm too used, like, I can't trust people because so far it feels like everybody's breathing down my neck, including you. And I even have dirt on you, so don't threaten me. And he was like, okay, you kind of got me. So he tried to defuse the situation, and she was just like, I'm so confused right now.
Oh, look. And this is like, the thing. We're getting a hero's journey. We're not getting the hero's journey.
Exactly. Like, that's what I was trying to hit at. Like I feel like you could gender swap this character every single day of the week, and it would be the same person going through this turmoil, because like they gave up on the idea of it being like the hero's journey being hero's journey as well. Instead, it's just like, no, a hero is a hero is a hero. They all have different things going on, but like there are certain things that make people heroes, and if you do those,
you're right.
The concept of heroism absolutely should not be restricted to gender lines ever.
No,
everybody should be able to feel inspired, but everybody should also be able to feel inspired with a sense of dignity and respect, meaning you do not actually, if you resort to putting someone else down to make you look better, you're garbage. I mean, there's no excuse for it. There's no excuse to attack people for any reason whatsoever. Attack ideas, sure. Let's debate things, in a civil manner, and if we get too heated, we need to walk away. That's fine. Restoring respect into discourse has nothing to do with respectful discourse, in that if we have a blow up, it's okay. It's what we do after. And so that's why we need to be better inspired by heroes that show this example of, I'm in competition with myself. If you need to pretend you're in competition with me to succeed, go right ahead. I don't want to hear about it until you're successful. When you're successful and you say, yeah, hating you was what motivated me to get to the top and make billions of dollars, cool, man. Happy to be living in your head, rent-free, making you a success. You with
that power, my friend.
Thanks for keeping it to yourself, though, because I don't want to know. I don't care. I don't. I'm too busy with you see all this shit and more outside of this. Yeah, I don't have time. I just don't have time. So be in competition with me if you feel you need to, but you should really be in competition with yourself to be a better person tomorrow than who you were yesterday. And that's, what I think we're kind of seeing our share of struggle, is that she wants to do what's right, but she's definitely struggling with, okay, put up against the wall like that, what are you supposed to do? Do you decide to be the one, pin that gets shoved in the gears that causes the whole machine to come apart? And then what's the collateral damage of destroying order? And that's what I'm absolutely enjoying about this show. This is very much mirroring what's going on in our life.
Is it worth it? She's like, is it worth it? And we're like, yes, it
Yes, but how many other stories throughout history have we had that are exactly like this, where the whole reason that the right thing wasn't done was simply to preserve order, and that morality was just tossed out the window because it's better to have peaceful compliance, peaceful slavery.
Maybe it is actually.
Well, I don't agree, but
in Silo.
Well, yeah, right. Sorry.
I don't know what the situation is. Maybe it is. Maybe.
If we're going to
Maybe
get into
it's
the
all
philosophical of it, I will tell you right now, I will take dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery any day. But that's what this show is really doing a good job of minimalizing and showing is like, this is, when you start to question what's morally good, when you start to prioritize and overthink doing the right thing, that's how you get the silo and the moral decisions of, oh, well, it's for the greater good. No. You only think it's for the greater good because you convinced yourself of it. You're turning your back on the truth and doing what's right because you're scared and you're a coward.
Well, guys, Robert Heinlein said this. It is better to be a live jackal than a dead lion, but it is still better to be a live lion. And I think that's the best way to take it.
Right. And that's also what I love about this show, though, is even though I think that maybe we should just go right for the truth and find it, at the same time, maybe it's not the right decision right now. Maybe there is actually going to be a justified reason at the end of this story as to why the silo has to be the way it is, and I'm open to it, and this is why this is good writing, is because it gets you to, oh, thank you. Yes, forgot.
So
brain worked bad.
So, H-Marine, why don't you give your thoughts, and then why don't we discuss the last 5 minutes of this episode?
That's all you showed up for, isn't it?
That is the only reason why I am here.
The show definitely has me hooked. I cannot wait to see how this ends up, because I'm like trying to figure out, are they ever going to actually end up outside? Are we ever actually going to find out what happened? Are those bodies actually decaying out there? Like, I just want to have my loose ends tied up. I'm just patiently, very, very patiently waiting for those. Because now I'm like, all right, we got all of our story. Okay, well, she planted some evidence, and now it might come back and potentially bite her in the ass, but we don't actually know because we have no idea which way the story is actually going to go. So I'm just waiting for my loose ends, that's all.
Well, I mean, on the plus side, if she ever gets nailed for anything and manages to escape, we know she's got somewhere where they won't follow her. So, yeah. So let's discuss the last 5 minutes, unless anyone else wants to get in on anything.
All right. So that last scene may or may not have, been a little bit of an emotional arm twist. Because it was, well, first of all, it was a little, she just walked with that contraband out in the open, like, whatever, no one cares, I guess. I guess she's the sheriff. Yeah. No one's gonna ask her, right? But it was like when she takes that out and she opens that magazine. First of all, how many of you take...
Imagine the sense of wonder.
How many of you take... Exactly. How many of you take magazines for granted?
Oh, like, I was just looking, I'm like, man, it's just like looking at the picture, like, you would have no conception of, like, it would just be the most mind-boggling thing you could possibly imagine. It's just beyond, like, your understanding. I just can't, it'd be amazing.
It was a really poignant moment in the series to see the perspective of somebody who does not have the world we have. I mean, it was a lot like, if you haven't seen the movie Soul on Pixar, a similar concept, in really just remembering to enjoy the world around you. That it's okay to stop and smile at birds flying in the air. It's okay to get excited to just see nature be nature. it's not something that, you know, is dumb or stupid. It's something that these people in this silo have no idea, and yet it's like, even though they were conditioned to live there, there's something human in her that wants to be on the surface. And there was something, and I mean, the music was well done. Everything about this scene was just fantastic, and really putting the emphasis on like, hey, you know, maybe don't take for granted the life you have right now, because you shouldn't. You should just always remember, as they said in Zombieland, enjoy the little things. And I mean, to really get over anxiety and depression, the little things help a lot. That's just me personally.
Now, and don't get me wrong, that was a very beautiful and very cool scene.
And then
Yeah.
this emotional roller coaster of like 5 minutes takes a turn that was rather unexpected and very implicated.
Spine tingling.
I was like, okay, is that the janitor closet, or are we entering a
I think that's the janitor.
I think it is the
closet.
janitor closet, because I think this show is a little too intelligent to go Cabin in the Woods style. I think they spy on themselves internally, and it's a whole, it's
a whole thing.
watch Silo if you're not already. And if you want to wait till all the episodes have dropped, watch Silo. That's all I can say.
And I think H. Marie and I had the exact same thought when we saw that op center. Hey, well, she's dead.
I wonder
H3?
how much they just let slide, honestly.
No, what I found interesting was the fact that in the silo, it is so rudimentary. There's very little technology. You have, you know, just enough to function. And yet we go in this room and all of a sudden we have high-tech cameras with all sorts
Modern
of different
TVs.
graphics overlays, like basically high-tech stuff that the only way they could have gotten there is if this is an experiment in some sort of weird-ass manipulation. That's because the computers, I don't know what's going to happen with that.
Well, I'm thinking this is all a separate system, and Judicial's known about it the whole damn time. And
That's-
that Judicial's real job, more than anything else, is maintaining order. And this is really how they do it.
Yeah, they genuinely know everything. Everything. They just let stuff slide. They're like just pick the battles, right, strategically as to what will get their goal accomplished, and then they just let the rest of it go, right?
Yeah, like who the hell cares who has a Pez dispenser? But if that individual who has the Pez dispenser starts making seditious comments or something along those lines, oh, well, guess what? Now we can go after them for the Pez dispenser.
Yeah. Exactly. Reminding us of what a good season 3 of Star Trek is actually supposed to be like, or at least better than what the last season 3 of Star Trek that I watched was. Coming in hot and hard, it's DS9 season 3 with The Search part 1 and 2, as well as House of Quark and Equilibrium. Yeah, so we were talking before the show, and I knew we were going to get to this moment with this season, and I was probably going to be reminded of what good Trek was, but holy crap. Being a writer myself, I've managed to crank out about 557 pages of meh. I fully accept that right now my writing is about Denny's grade. I might get to, Applebee's or maybe even Cheesecake Factory level by the time I'm like 50 or 60, but I know what you get. You know what you're getting with me, and you might even like it more than when you're drunk. But that's also when we had another realization. That Picard Season 3 is obviously the Waffle House. Because we don't go there for the good food. We knew what we were getting into. We accept the fact that while he's smashing his cigarette into your eggs and hash browns, we expect the floors to be sticky. If I go into a Waffle House and those floors aren't sticky, I turn around, I walk out. Try again. I almost did during COVID, but I was like, oops, I said the C word. But I was like, you know what, it's rough, and these people are just working hard, and they're gonna, make us food. Actually, John, you were there for that. That was the first time I ever ate in a clean Waffle House. I don't ever want to do that again. Because it was like we could slide on the floors. They were so clean. And the tables and everything. And I was like, my arm should be sticky. There should be a spot of syrup.
If the waitress isn't missing an eye, it's not a Waffle House.
Yeah.
If there aren't bullet holes somewhere in the building, it's not a Waffle House.
Yep. So the only constant in the universe is change. And when it comes to pop culture, I am open to changing my mind all the time when presented with new evidence. Well, I was just presented with evidence that I already knew. I just needed to remember what it was like. Deep Space Nine, these guys are cranking out 45-minute masterpieces. These 4 episodes were some of the most top-notch quality storytelling for Star Trek that could have ever existed. And it's like, if Star Trek Legacy isn't at least this good out of the gate, it just gives us an excuse to rewatch DS9, you know? I mean, Terry keeps running his mouth about how he's going to bring back all the characters he killed off and undo all those heartfelt moments that, you know, really just are going to be nothing. Like, it's one thing to bring back the Enterprise D and give Generations, the worst Star Trek movie ever made, the middle finger. But if you're going to undo all those character deaths, why not just bring back everybody? Hell, we've got deepfake technology. We just resurrect the entire original series cast. Don't have to pay them now. We'll just deepfake their faces on all of it. And I mean, you know what? Why bother having Strange New Worlds? Let's just throw Shatner's face over the top of Anson Mounts. He was imitating Kirk anyway to learn the part. No,
Well,
let's not do that.
all I have to say to
Let's
that
not
is,
do that at all.
PD, all I have to say to that line of thought is, oh my.
Oh no would be more accurate. Yeah. Or hell no. How about we counter offer? How about we don't?
Well, I think this is the exact moment for your Captain Shaw's no.
No. All right, yeah, right. No.
There you go.
The Search Part 1, like I said, we come with fire right out of the gate, although some people who are not currently present at their console wouldn't know that.
Okay, so
Hold on real quick. Does anybody on this panel, by chance, have the Defiant as their favorite Star Trek ship?
I believe you're referring to the USS Cisco's Pimp Hand. And if that is the case, then yes, the Cisco Pimp Hand is my favorite ship.
So, Corion, why don't you give us the little introduction of the episode, how the episode starts, and then I will read an actual synopsis.
All right, so the episode starts with Kira, Dax, and O'Brien sitting around the ops table, reviewing the latest, analysis of how well they do in the event that the Dominion comes screaming out of the wormhole like a bag of very, very angry bees. And they realize that they are hopelessly and hilariously outclassed by this force. And they're sitting there going, we're in trouble. We're never going to be able to defend this station if they decide to come out swinging. And then the alarms are on the bridge or in ops start going off everywhere. And they realize that there's something very close to the station. So close, it's almost inside their shield perimeter. And as everyone starts to panic, Decloaks is a Federation ship. A Federation ship that doesn't look like any other ship in the fleet. A ship that looks like it was designed for one purpose, and that is to mess up other ships.
Can we actually get that? Can we actually get that sexy beast on the screen, please?
I will do my best to get that.
She's got her flaws, but she's got teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah. The crew of the station is preparing for an expected attack of the Jemadar, but the prognoses are not looking good. Within 2 hours, the station will be taken over. Suddenly, a cloaked ship is detected very close to the station, as Corion said. They're being held by Captain Sisko. He's on board of the Defiant, a prototype of new class of star... Wow, this entire synopsis is basically just what you said. Anyway, they decide to go off into the... Sorry, Arnold Teal, I appreciate your attempt at contributing to this week's episode. We will catch you up on the search part. I don't think we're going to do part 2. We will hit you up when we decide to talk about the House of Quark. Yeah. this right out of the gate, we get a brand new ship. So we have something now. We have a new element added to the station. It's totally different. This is not a standard for Starfleet. I know what Kira says about Starfleet is in the business of making warships. I've always found that idea to be, silly.
Okay, Next Generation era wasn't really building warships. They were building multi-purpose ships.
They were building Borg cannon fodder, yes.
Yeah.
And so this is supposed to be the anti-cannon fodder because this is how things work in just existence. You are the big bad on the block, or so you thought. You are all about freedom and rights and the republic and the rule of law and all that great shit, right? More or less, we live, doing what we want. We just don't hurt each other, and we live by a set of ideals of cooperation and tolerance. Okay. Well, you come across a rogue species that doesn't care about any of that because they're automatons that believe in total techno authoritarianism. And they don't give you any freedom of thought. You will be a part of the collective, but you will have no control over anything. Yeah, you can hold on to the, you can cling to your ideals as much as you want. Fact remains, if this force is trying to come and kill you, you're either going to have to make two choices. You either roll over and let it kill you, or you choose to take a stand. And that's just, I think this is why I like Enterprise as well. Enterprise does a good job of reiterating this idea when the Enterprise encounters an adversary that it has trouble overcoming and they don't actually have phasers equipped on the ship yet. And so this is where they have to actually build the phaser themselves and get them more armaments and weapons. And to Paul and Archer having a conversation where he's like, where did you guys encounter these guys? Why was it, how come you guys never ran into trouble? And to Paul says this very poignant line, which I think is what, out of respect to the not necessarily to the TOS fans, and I mean the actual TOS fans who can at least appreciate, TNG and appreciate the rest of us fans that like the Star Trek we love for our reasons. The thing that I wanted to consider is the fact that it was a different time.
Yeah.
And that's what is really key here, is that yes, obviously we want to strive for that utopia vision, that utopia future. The reason why I love DS9, because it's a proper deconstruction of Roddenberry's vision, is because it's not a deconstruction to shit on Roddenberry. It's a deconstruction to make Roddenberry's vision more relatable to everyday folks like you and me, and to show us the path. Cisco embodies this well, but I can't get too much into that right now because we just haven't hit those moments where it's truly, where Cisco's been tested, but
what happens when something from the outside is
anyway,
here
and now
to overcome?
This is why I love DS9, because yes, we go through the war arcs, we get like all the, we're getting away from the exploration for a bit because this is what this is what we have to see. This is what we have to accept. These are the ideas we have to talk about. The horrors of warfare and such that, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry.
So here's what it boils down to for me. 99% of the time, the Federation would love to build science ships and multi-purpose ships, stuff that they can do peaceful exploration with. And if they have to smack somebody, they've got the capability. This is an example of what the Federation can do when they say, no, you know what? I've had enough. If somebody is going to send, genetically up-jumped honey badgers at us, we are sending this in response because we've spent a lot of time doing the science and doing the research, and we got very, very good at building very, very dangerous things. This is a very, very dangerous thing.
Yes, it is.
And then they decided, you know what? Let's contact the Romulans because, the Romulans are probably just as annoyed here too. And let's see if they'll loan us a cloaking device.
Yeah.
And
wait, I just realized. I totally didn't realize this. I don't think the Defiant has an Arboretum.
No, it does not.
Yeah. Huh.
The Defiant has nothing, no comforts, no fun.
It barely
of
has
any
bed
kind.
mats.
Yeah. No. My Defiant does. You know what? Yeah. I doubled up some crew quarters, and I put a little garden in there because I mean, yes, we still use the regular air recyclers, but you just gotta. Nothing beats plants, man. Nothing beats the real trees and the real air. A little discussion we had backstage, of course, and in our Discord today was that I brought up the fact that in our next episode we talk about arboretums, but we'll get back to that.
Yeah. So, yeah, this thing is designed, initially was designed to fight and defeat the Borg. Well, it turns out the Borg weren't really as much of a threat anymore. And, the Federation engineers, and the Federation engineers sat down and went, maybe we made it too nasty.
Yeah. I don't believe that it would take Starfleet to get to this point to actually design a smaller ship like this. Now, then again, maybe the Miranda is the inter border patrol vessel that in case somebody has distresses or pirates. I imagine there's a lot of internal Federation stuff that we don't know about because we're just assumed, oh yeah, it's all peaceful. I'm like, that's what we want to strive for, but. Anyway, I would think that would be the purpose that this vessel could also serve as, as another deterrent to more aggressive pirates. I mean, Mirandas are functional, but, I mean, Scogli, you have a Miranda class in STL. How's it going for you, buddy?
Hey, oh man, it's as long as if you strategize, you can lay down a tremendous amount of firepower. Like as long as you're thinking, planning ahead, you save your shield boost thing. You do the evasive maneuver.
You
turn around, do the tachyon blast.
Enjoy having to plan out and be all Star Trekky in these, with your thinking and your tactics. Because
you gotta outmaneuver them and come down on top of them.
No. All I was gonna say is, TD, you've seen what I fly, right? Do you think we should introduce them?
We should.
I've seen some impressive hardware last night on the stream.
One of our new community members who found us on stream last night and was actually eager to join our Discord.
I was just skirting around the battle, picking up all the pickups and stuff.
That I can buy from a Miranda.
Because I was getting the high level stuff because of the battle. And I was just like.
I actually forgot to toggle the difficulty properly, and so it ended up being set to my level, which I'm 65. And he's level 10 or 11 now. Yeah. Oh, you should be able to get a new ship. But anyway, it was just funny. It was like okay, new mission: protect Scogli at all costs, so he can still feel like he's having fun.
So Scogli, I run a Prometheus with multi-vector assault mode.
Okay.
So my ship literally splits into 3 for fights.
Gnarly.
Right? So, I think if I get on with you guys, we'll assign one of my sponson ships to keep Scogli alive and then go do stuff.
I was playing the storyline a couple hours ago, and I was actually given command of the Terran version of the Defiant, and Jesus.
Yeah, that thing's jacked, huh?
The Adamant.
Jesus.
Yeah, the Adamant. Yeah.
That's a good looking ship too. But anyway.
So getting back to this. So they make the decision to go, try to find the founders, the head of the Dominion. And, at the beginning, it seems like it's going okay. They think they've got everything under control. They don't have anything under control. The control is a complete illusion.
Yeah.
Because when the Jem'Hadar show up, they catch them unaware. They take them. The fight is on, but while this is all going on, something weird is going on with Odo. He seems obsessed. Right, he seems obsessed with a map that they discovered, and he wants to go to one of the places on the map. And everyone's telling him, "Wait," and he's like, "No, I have to go now." And you really get this impression that, he's kind of giving the responses that you'd almost expect, like, it's a salmon and he needs to swim upstream, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah. So there is an aspect to these episodes that I would like to discuss. However, we do need to give our first run viewer the option to decide if we will discuss this particular fact. So, John, not naming a specific character, there is something that gets added It is an ad hoc that we learn about a character later on in the series. Now, it actually works. It doesn't feel totally out of place, but it is kind of like a sort of future spoiler. If you don't want to hear it, then we don't have to talk about it.
No, I'm down. I'm
Okay.
not that concerned.
So what we find out, I think, in season 5 is, as it turns out, Bashir is actually hyper intelligently gifted because of genetic engineering. Genetic engineering is outlawed in the Federation. That's why Khan was sent off to space. That's why there's a whole bunch of things with augments that are a problem, is because Federation decided that it messes too much with brain chemistry. So Bashir, however, now the ad hoc ended up working, because you probably heard that and are like, duh. He's socially awkward, but he's also really smart. And so it actually works out. That's why, this is why this ad hoc worked perfectly. This episode is proof as to why that was a good decision, is because of the character of Garrick in this episode. Why does Garrick behave so much like Bashir's version that he has in his head? This is how I am resolving it. If he has that smart hyperintelligence, is it so impossible to believe that his brain would subconsciously create a defense mechanism in the form of somebody that would be able to protect Bashir without actually being detected as an anomaly in the program that they were running? Because he would fit almost so seamlessly. But he says a line that Garrick never actually, the real Garrick would never say. What do you mean, the tailoring business or the spy business? Garrick never ever confirms to Bashir directly whether or not he's a spy, at least as far as we've seen so far. So it's really weird that he would just kind of be nonchalantly suggesting it.
Yeah.
So, and then of course, the Garrick, hologram or figment of the imagination ends up helping them. And it's like, why would they program the Garrick unit to help them when everybody else is working against them? Why would they have an option for rebellion at all that would be so easy? It doesn't make, I guess we don't know if it makes sense yet. We don't really know the character of the Dominion that well. I should just shut up.
So we have this. We have, so the plan does not go smoothly. They get captured, but we find out who the founders are, and it's Odo's people.
The changelings.
And this puts Odo, Odo doesn't realize quite how much of a quandary this is yet, until we find out that the rest of the crew is being stuck in a virtual reality experiment by the founders to try to figure out if we go into the Alpha Quadrant, how is everyone going to react? And they're starting to realize that maybe, the Federation isn't going to react too well to people, deciding to move into the neighborhood. So, so they get that, and, the episode resolves by...
Let's decide to move into the neighborhood. No. They're moving into the neighborhood and kicking all the other neighbors out of the neighborhood.
There's that.
It's more like an invasion, not really a moving in to be neighborly.
Well, fair enough. But, with the veil of being neighborly, I guess, right?
Oh, that's sickly, to be our friend. Oh.
Yeah, exactly, right?
It's just sickly sweet.
Yeah. So, we start realizing a lot of how the Dominion operates here. And, they're allowed to return simply because no one's going to stop Odo. Because as far as they're concerned, he is a founder. He is allowed to set those kind of rules where he says, no, I'm taking my friends, we're going, and you don't get to stop us because I set the freaking rules too. Yeah. Well, no, it's because if you set rules, I set rules.
I don't think he quite understands what's going on there. He's just generally assertive, right? So I'm taking these people. He doesn't know anything, right? Right? At this point, he's just like, no, I'm taking these. And they're like, yeah, okay.
Well, because, who's going to stop him, right? It's quite clear that, the species that we will come to know as the Vorta, are not going to disobey one of the changelings under any circumstances.
Yeah. There is one, one item of debate that's always goes in with this is where exactly certain stuff exists in Star Trek, and of course Star Trek Online went with the map where Earth sits literally on the border of the Alpha and the Beta quadrant. So it's kind of funny when not Seska the Romulan says that she has, all the other powers of the Alpha Quadrant have been invited. Why haven't we? Well, you see, it's because you live in the Beta Quadrant. Yeah. So why should you be invited to the table?
You're a lousy Beta species.
Yeah,
deal with it.
Alpha
right.
Quadrant,
The Klingons aren't going to be
baby.
invited either. It's Alpha powers, which is Cardassians, Trill, Betazoids, and then if we're going to go into the future, Zenkethi, Terrans, because Terrans want to live in the Badlands. Oh, boy. Anyway, yeah, the Sigma Tau Omega timeline gets a little confusing. Yeah.
But it's one of those, we as the audience start realizing, these guys are a major threat. And I do want to take a moment to talk about the Dominion because, you really think about it, right? The Federation really comes together as a confluence of a couple of decent species that decide to work together. This is the anti-Federation, because this is one species that said, screw it. I'm going to make species that are going to be client species to me.
I'm tired of getting picked on. I'm going to be the king of the galaxy.
I'm going to be the freaking bully now, right? And that's basically how they operated. Was they set up a bunch of their own, client species, took over their part of the galaxy. They are the anti-Federation. They're everything the Federation, could have been in like the worst timeline. This is going to be a real fight for them, right? As it is, Federation shields don't seem to do squat to Dominion weapons, right? We're not sure how well they can see through the cloak, but we know they can at least a little. Is there a defense that can stop the Dominion? Right?
Don't know.
Right. I mean, we do know that the Defiant rocked a Dominion ship with the most impressive display of pew pew phasering that we have seen in quite some time.
All right, Donnie Pearson writes in, at the Writer Brothers Virtual TrekCon main viewer raid. Hello, PD, Corione, H. Marie, Scogli, and all. Hope everybody is well this evening. Yeah, Donnie, we're great.
Donnie.
You just showed up here.
Since I've seen you.
Hey, Donnie.
Wait, do I understand we actually are being raided by other people right now?
We are being raided.
Okay, because I thought he referred to us as being a virtual TrekCon, which, I mean, technically would be true at the moment. We are talking Star Trek, and we have this beautiful little sexy beast of a starship up on display. Donnie Pearson says, this is among the live streams I'm watching on YouTube right now. Oh, okay, awesome.
And
well,
we
thank you.
appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate you giving us the time, as always.
Absolutely. If you get the chance, please leave a like on the video. It really helps the channel out.
Yes, and if you like what we have to say, a subscribe and a share does go a long way. Those are quick little free gestures that you can do to help us grow and support without having to cost you anything but a little bit more time. Either way, we're just happy you guys even show up at all.
That's it.
It gives me a reason to listen to myself rant.
There you go. So, yeah, I mean, we definitely get a taste of the Dominion is no joke, but it looks like the Federation has a little bit of a response that's also not a joke. You really get the impression.
Oh, the spirit of 1776 is alive and well in the Search Part 2, when it's just constant, like, this is not... No, we're not doing this. We're not seating. Nope, fine. Screw you, we're closing the wormhole. That's like, so what a Boston Tea Party maneuver to do. Like, oh, you know what? We're the only ones standing up to this tyranny? Fine. We're doing it on our terms. You can pry our freedom from our cold dead hands, but before you do, your reinforcements ain't shown up for 100 years.
Also, I do want to say, even though it's not Garrick has one of the greatest moments in the Search Part 2.
That's why I said he's not a part of the program. He is
being used.
While Facebook and Twitch are working just fine.
Okay, so Yeah, I'm just gonna go for it then. I have them. See,
It's back.
you weren't part of the plan. Well, you see, I pretend to be their friend, then maneuver them to you. Then I shoot you, and we walk out of here, right?
And then I shoot you. Yeah, no. See, that's not. I mean, that would probably also be the real Garrick, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
Because,
that totally.
because the thing is, with Bashir being hyper intelligent, he's actually picked up even more of what Garrick actually is. He probably actually knows Garrick a lot better than Garrick knows. But here's the thing: when you're the guy in the room who knows, when you're the one who knows more about somebody than they realize they've let on, why would you want to ruin that?
Well, there you go, right?
Just let them keep talking.
There it is. So yeah, we definitely have the USS Cisco's pimp hand now, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
and
So,
that's
John,
the way to
John,
put it.
you have been quietly listening to us get excited about this show we've watched like at least 12 times in our lifetime. Actually, I think this is actually only number 5. So why don't you give us your thoughts? It's your first time for the Search Part 1 and 2.
So the episode both episodes overall, I'll just call it the episode because it was one story. Like overall, it didn't I don't know, you're saying that the fire starts cooking, and I'm still it's Star Trek, man. The fire's always been kind of cooking, but again, the Dominion.
I'm so proud to hear you say that.
In the sense that the enemies and the Jim Harding, and potentially the fact that the shapeshifters are the main heads. If you take all of those thoughts into one, really what you've got is tyranny versus interplanetary utopia and democracy to some degree. But I don't know. I feel like I sent that meme to the group chat about what Gene Roddenberry's true goal of Star Trek was, which was to show the maturity of man if it was realized, and show what that would look like in the future. And I feel like what a lot of people see as immaturity in violence is really an immature understanding of violence, because violence in and of itself, yes, it is the weaker option between diplomacy and violence, but it is also the best option between subjugation and
freedom.
Subjugation and freedom. So in that instance, it's are you complying? Are you being diplomatic because you're standing in a free position to comply and be diplomatic? Or are you standing in a position of servitude, and compliance extends that servitude? And if we know anything about how time works, we know that if I accept, then my children are going to be challenged to accept. A lot of people will say give me the power and then I'll give it back, but very few ever have.
I'm just going to say this. You're talking about how the evolved human in Trek would be more of a diplomat. Dude, Clausewitz, war is diplomacy by any other means. We're still being diplomatic. We're just in the other versions of it.
Well, the first rule of war is to avoid battle at all cost, to achieve peace first and foremost. That's what you want to strive for at any means, and if you can do it without bloodshed, all the better.
I mean, these are a lot of different philosophies on war. I think Sun Tzu's
the best,
but I mean, not just based on statistics, but also based on his understanding that it's all about knowing your enemy. And I think that one thing that Gene Roddenberry and the rest of the Star Trek crew really failed to show is how much maturity would be like that. Maturity is what we see in these in the Orville, when that one species just kept accelerating its growth. They would go to the ship for a day and then lose it for a week, and it would come back and it would be 1,000 years in the future or something like that. The species didn't get rid of lasers. Like their spaceships weren't less powerful. And in that instance, I think the same goes for like what Starfleet should be. Like I feel like when the Dominion showed up to Deep Space Nine, it should have been scary. But when literally any of the Starfleet's ships showed up, like it didn't have to be the Defiant. It should have been any of them because they would have been so educated in warfare, because they would have had all of the Klingon tech, all of the Romulan tech upgraded and reintegrated into their systems. Like that's what you do when you know your enemy, is you know their weapon systems and then you reintegrate them better. And I feel like that's like my major hang up with where we're at is like, yes, Deep Space Nine is not Starfleet. It's Cardassian. It was a mining vessel, weak. But the fact that they had to go find a prototype to challenge this other species that isn't the Borg, I don't know. I don't know. Felt like Starfleet was really showing its ass.
Well, okay.
I actually have to agree. Like,
okay.
The Defiant's first maiden voyage was not impressive. She lost. She went up against the new Dominion force, and not even against a capital ship. This was just against the bug ships that took out the Galaxy class. Like, she managed to take out one of them, sure, but her maiden voyage was a total failure. I mean, but stay tuned, John.
Well, here's what I will say to that, right? Cisco specifically wanted a ship that he knew that would be that didn't have a captain that he would have to argue with the whole damn time. He wanted a ship he could captain of his own, so he wasn't dealing with any other people, that he could have it with his people, that it was small enough that he only had to worry about his crew. So there is a logic to it.
And to that, I completely like understand in lore works. What I'm bummed is that the ship that he got was this experimental weapon of death. There wasn't.
And then they lost.
If anything, it should have been like the best we could get was this old pre-Klingon warship weapon of death that we used to use when we were in the Klingon War. That's the only thing that is a 5-person, 20-person team serviceable. And then like it does what the Defiant did. Like it was their early attempts at like cloaking like the Klingons had. Like that's kind of what I mean is like my big hang up with the Federation is like they achieved warp and then they've really never upgraded since. Like you do get the Voyager, you do get all these other upgrades in terms of like single ships with single crews, but like if you really think about it, one of the characters that should have been continuing to develop was the ship. It should have upgraded. Like even the Orville recognized that. Like and I know it's technically like a bump in pay, but like season 3 when the Orville shows the ship, they take a long minute to go, yeah, thank God for all these upgrades for this war we're in. Whereas like every time the Enterprise ever shows up, it's like, oh, it's the same one. They rebuilt it exactly the same as it was in episode 1. Well, or they added an E to change it up to make you think it was different. Like,
blasphemy. The Enterprise E has its own nuance. Now, don't get me wrong. The Enterprise D...
It's a sovereign class.
The Enterprise D is also great on its own. They're both great ships, but...
So it's not about... Like, what I mean more in terms of, like, greatness is, like, where's the efficiency in adaptation to one's enemy? Like,
so the Enterprise E...
vessel, like, that would be the most...
The Enterprise E does have upgraded phaser banks, and they add what's called quantum torpedoes, whereas the Enterprise D had photon torpedoes. So the weapons do get upgraded.
Weapons, but like that. I should be 100% transparent. I am aware that I am competing with like hard models, hard, weak CGI that you couldn't update week to week. Like even South Park noticed that they had to make it as simple as possible to be able to turn over cartoons every week. So I respect that. But at the same time, I still feel like, I don't know. I feel like one of the things I'm really seeing is that Star Trek is among every other modern franchise in that it falls prey to the villain, the ultimate villain of the season or of the series being ultimate-y enough. And it's like, man, okay. Like I respect that. Like I get that is one of the hardest things to do in writing, which is
Hold on. Let me put this across your bow. I see what you're saying. You're jaded by the galactic level threat. You've started to appreciate No?
I'm jaded by the supposed utopian federation meeting another empire that on the first introduction it's better. Like the Klingons, then the Romulans, and then the Borg, and now the Dominion. It's like, come on, guys. Like, let's stop.
The Klingons were not better. The Klingons were actually, the Klingons and the Romulans were about technically matched to the Federation. That's why the Federation didn't lose either of those wars. The Cardassians are about the same. Everybody's actually about the same power level wise. It's the Dominion, however, is a different power. They are First of all, they use totally different weapons.
So they're all the same power level. By this season, they've basically all like teamed up. Like the Romulan is giving them
okay, so that's a little bit of a misnomer. Think of the Romulan cooperation like a very shaky, like an alliance between the United States and Colombia. That's the best way to describe that.
I do get that as well. But again, maturity. Like I feel like as soon as you start cooperating, like I think a lot of like
okay, so I see what.
No, hold up. I think a lot of writers get like hung up on the idea of like modern politics and how like when you're supposed to be like the ultimate peacekeeping nation, like you're willing to sign armistice like America did with North Korea and South Korea. And that's not true. Like America is not actually the bastion of peace it claims to be. And I think that's where a lot of these stories like stunt out, is like they believe that the way America did things is the most peaceful way to do it, because that's what a lot of us were like taught and told. But then like if you think about it, like the most peaceful thing to do with the Romulans is be like, oh, you're gonna kind of come hang out with us?
Okay, hold on, hold on. Nope. This is the kick in the ball of the peace, though. You cannot make the other side come to the table. You cannot control what the person you are trying to make peace with does. And that's what you have to understand about the Romulan Star Empire. They do not do Federation diplomacy. They do not do diplomacy with anybody. They don't come to the table.
It's not diplomacy in the nominal or normal sense. Instead, it's diplomacy in the sense that, like, if you truly did create utopia, every single person that comes to visit is going to be like, oh, okay, they got it right.
Right. And
so what you do is you there are some, ideas that America holds that are right, which is like technically like you enforce your borders, but not to the point that like you're like, get out. Instead, you're like, no, be right or get out. If we find out
right or you're gone,
criminal, then you are gone. If we never meet you because you never got in trouble with the law.
And hell, if you're successful, I'll praise you. I'm a full believer that every red, white, and blue-blooded American isn't actually born in America. 2 of them are on this panel.
Yeah, and it is so much more about like respecting each other and respecting, freedom. Everybody's freedom to live a free and fruitful life. And I think that's the part that the Federation has always had. But then every single series
John,
has the problem of like constantly painting the Federation as if like every single citizen in the Federation is wearing the uniform.
Yeah. So all I can do to say to that is stay tuned.
Fair. And you trust
remember
me,
the Maquis?
100% willing to see these things change. And I don't doubt that they do get better.
Remember the Maquis?
Yeah.
Yeah. That we aren't done with them yet.
yeah, you guys have like said stuff like that, and I don't think like I'm not saying like any of this is like none of this is deal breakers. I'm complaining about this purely.
Oh
from
yeah,
the
no, I'm not worried
like,
about you bailing. You're not bailing. You're stuck.
Yeah, but also like just like as a writer, like I do 100% see how this is hard, but I'm also like tying these ties. Like I do get it that a lot of people think that America nailed freedom on the first try, and it's like no, that's why America exists, is because it's never been right on the first try, but it's always been willing to try again and keep trying again and keep failing again and keep updating. And a lot of other nations have done the same thing because it worked. And they're all doing it their own way now. And so now we're kind of like Patriots versus the Eagles. Like, you guys aren't very democratic like us, except for all the exact same parliamentary and presidential and judicial branches. Oh, you guys added a king. You're different. Like, okay, like I have an eagle, you have pitchforks. Like, who cares? And I think that like that's the flaw when writing, is like you can see what the real world has done, but you have to remember that the real world is slow, and you're writing thousands of years in a row, hundreds of days in a row, time to adapt and adapt again and adapt again, and then exponentially adapt. So like I don't know. I really want to challenge more writers to try that. Like that to me feels like that's what the author of Foundation, Isaac Asimov, was attempting. Like he was legitimately attempting to skip generations to prove that like the story of the species is also kind of fun. Like the story
Asimov was just
exactly. He was wild, but like.
He's one of the best sci-fi writers of all time.
Well, he was one of the fathers, and I think in that like instance, I think that like he was living when there wasn't hardly enough cars that are as cool as the cars we have today. So why are all of our spaceships the same? Why are all of them these box carts?
I want to see that ship that Donnie's talking about.
And I mean, the most frustrating thing is like for me as a writer and trying to like come up with art styles for a video game, like I'm realizing that the spaceship dilemma is hard, but like aliens.
That's why I just kept it simple to warships in space.
Of years, and there have been like triangles and pyramids and spheres and discs and.
Did you watch The Expanse, John?
Shapes.
Did you watch The Expanse? Okay.
I did. I liked Expanse. I like the fact that like they are more like mech suits. Like it's a fully working multi.
Well, and the ships fly. They're basically flying skyscrapers. Is the best way to describe it.
Because that's what you're gonna want to do. You want your crow's nest being your captain's seat, and then like go straight.
Well, if that's the design aesthetic that works for you, great. I love the Starfleet design. It's just. Anyway,
more in terms of...
we still got two more to get into, and they're really good ones. And I just saw the clock. We got to get on it. So, The House of Quark, one of the best, definitely another good episode of DS9. War is good for business is the 34th rule of acquisition, but Quark is not noticing at all. Okay, right out of the gate, Arnoud Teal, you're coming in with straight fire. Nicely done. His bar is almost empty now. People are leaving the station in droves in fear of the Dominion. Only a drunk Klingon Kozak is left, and he refuses to pay. Jeez, I've seen several of these before in Key West. He assaults Quark and dies while accidentally...
freeloading Klingons? You said in Key West?
Yeah.
Some of them might as well be, man. You know, a drag queen after a freaking night of work is just... Some of them are like, look, I just want to relax and drink.
Falls on their dagger and dies.
There you go.
Well, I was going to say that part. That part I haven't seen at all, thankfully. But, yeah. Anyway, he assaults Quark and dies while accidentally falling on his knife. When Quark sees curious crowds outside the bar, he gets a great idea. He decides to tell everyone he killed the Klingon in a great fight to increase business. Odo warns him this might be dangerous, but arrogantly Quark refuses to listen. First, he gets a visit by Zadok's brother, Dagor, seeking confirmation he died an honorable death. Then he has to confess the truth to widow Grilka. She kidnaps him and forces him to marry her to save the house of Kozak. Meanwhile, Keiko has to close the school because all the Bajoran children left. Chief O'Brien tries everything to cheer her up. Now, of course, the B plot is really the meat and potatoes of this. You know, that's the other. No, I'm just kidding. But we did have a fascinating discussion. I actually had a cross-community discussion about the fact that DS9 does not have an arboretum. This initially struck me as odd when I realized this because I'm used to all the ships in Star Trek just about having arboretums. Enterprise D basically has an indoor park. The Enterprise A also has an arboretum that you can see during the flyby. It's those big giant windows with those trees in there. Yeah, I've seen the cross sections, the arboretum. And so it was like, and that was a concept that I may or may not have totally shamelessly lifted for Galaxia because it just made sense. How do you breathe in space? You bring plants. Expanse, same thing. They have all the growth, pods, and they actually really explain. The Expanse does a really great job of explaining how they keep the oxygen flowing. So we all got to have a great discussion about how it actually works, and I learned about chemical artificial air, and that's when I realized, well, I guess when it comes down to personal preference, if I get a spaceship, it's going to have an arboretum. Probably a big one, too. But yeah, what did we think of the House of Quark? Why don't we start with you, John?
Now is when I say finally Star Trek hit its start. Like,
I already dropped an F-bomb tonight, but I mean, I love you, but I also,
well, so okay,
for this
so
whole time, the whole time during that last discussion, you were waiting until.
Well, so it's the way the episodes went. So, like with Star Trek, I'm always ready for the next big bad. I'm always ready for it being bigger than the Federation. But like, I am never ready.
I'm sorry, real quick, John. That was very well played in that you just let me continue to rant and interrupt you, and then just drop that on me right now. Oh, now finally this is where, if I had just shut up, we would have gotten here sooner. Shit.
And so for me, like, well, that's like I don't look at Star Trek for the Star Trek pieces of the genre because I already know it hit that. Like, if two fans are like, guys, part of our new dedicated show is to rewatch this show from the 90s, it's got to be pretty good. Like, it had to have, hit somebody's heartstrings a little bit. And I have a theory about a lot of shows, and I don't think that a lot of people know why they matter to them as much as they do. And I think it's because of episodes like this one. Because, like, O'Brien was the manliest man I have ever seen. All he wanted to do was give his partner the love he knew that they deserved. And he had no fucking clue how to do it. So he went to all of his friends. And he goes to Bashir, who, I mean, that dude's a player. Like, that guy is 100% like a gangster because he knew exactly what every element of the help was going to cost. And he knew it like a science. Like, he was like, no, she's going to be cool with it for a little while. But like, the way he said it, he's like, you are trying to convince her to sacrifice her passion to make it a hobby in this open universe. And for O'Brien to hear that and go, oh yeah, man, I'm dumb. Like, man, that is a man's man. Like, he just open about his feelings, but he wasn't sappy about it. He didn't lose, like, he wasn't crying. He's like, I'm not good enough for her and I'll never. No, he's like, guys, I'm trying.
It felt like a very relatable conversation.
Yeah. And he was like, I thought I knew how to love her. I think I do, but it's not working. What do I do? Because that's what a man does. He asks for help when all else fails. Rather than crying and exploding, he asks for help. And he asks for help from people he trusts. And people who understand him. And for Jadzia Dax, especially in the episode.
And you feel for them.
And then you get to watch them challenged.
They're not
side
perfect.
characters.
Yeah, it's
Like Jadzia in this episode is a side character, but like the way she talks to the major, she's like, "Let the boys be boys," and not in the wrong context that we've heard so much about in the Twitter sphere, but in the right context.
Yeah.
Where, like, you know,
Oh,
they're
she's
too
cool.
prideful to say this, but they're embarrassed that they don't know how to talk to girls and deal with women. And if you just try to make them okay with it, they're going to shut down, because that's what people do when they're in survival mode. You know, and when we're embarrassed, we're in survival mode. So if you embarrass somebody and they lash out at you, don't be stupid and assume like, oh, they took it too hard. It's like, no, they wanted it to stop. And so they made it stop. And the fact that like screaming at you was the thing that worked, you're bad for pushing them over the edge. And if you really are a good friend to that person, give them a hug. Be like, my bad, I didn't mean to push you that far. That was my bad. I overshot that. And you know what happens? Nobody cares, because everybody remembers, oh yeah, it's just life. But if you don't apologize, if you're not honest, like, and that's all we're seeing in this episode is like characters realizing the importance of honesty and the importance of help and the importance of diversity, because for once the Klingons are saved by a dirty, money grubby Ferengi.
The house of
But a Ferengi is
no.
also learning about honesty.
Please let me do it, because Galron is, you know, I've got the Galron eyes, because, you know, we have to do the Galron eyes when we're doing Galron.
I mean, I don't know. I was watching for him. He kind of kept him under control this episode.
I know, but the House of Quark.
It's pronounced Quark.
But yeah,
I
you
also
have to do the
wanna-
Galron eyes.
yeah,
That's the best part of a Galron.
I gotta commend the Klingon efficiency for how to properly handle marriage and divorce. It's pretty much like just right to the point. It's efficient, and then it's like a quick slap across the face and getting spat on is what you get divorced. Well,
I think you a divorce right now.
I think there's several people who've gone through divorce that would see that and go, not even remotely fair. Like,
wait, let's then acknowledge The Office for having a Klingon wedding that was technically a German wedding, but was definitely the exact same. Repeat after me. Repeat after me.
that never thought connect. Nice. Good one.
I will also say this too. What I thought was kind of fun was Grilka's like aide de camp there being like, please consider what you're doing here. You know, like, you realize what this means, right?
Yeah, but I mean, what? Yet another. First of all, we had a badass moment of Quark, you know, actually managing to hold his own in a gunfight. And now we have another badass moment of Quark doing the most anti-Ferengi thing imaginable. He didn't know if he was going to die or not when he put his life on the line the way he did. And I mean, what a way to just call out the hypocrisy of Klingon culture while using the hypocrisy of Ferengi culture to actually be a benefit in the end. Just so much good going on in this episode.
Just what a little devil, eh?
Which was the most Ferengi thing he could have done.
Oh, I love Quark.
Oh, it's
And-
a
Triple
Quark is
entendre.
great.
And let's give a little bit of a shout out to Quark's brother Rom in this episode,
Ron
because
gets better.
there's this great scene where Quark is just talking and Rom is just sitting there, like, not actually saying anything. Quark is having both sides of the conversation, and Rom is just kind of standing there, and it is a brilliant scene. And if Rom was not as good an actor under
Max
that makeup,
check. Oh man.
right? Like, if he was not like set up to succeed in that scene, it would not have worked. And man, did that work. Those two are a comedy duo that really,
Yeah, Armin
really
Shimmerman
works.
and Max Grodenchek.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an excellent pair, and then of course Aaron Eisenberg when he's involved, it's
Rest in
all great.
peace.
All right, we are pressed for time, so unfortunately that is all we can talk about for one of the best. Now, also moving on to one of the best episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Right.
That's what I'm going to introduce all of them now. All right. At a Cisco house party, later lifted by Strange New Worlds, Jadzia sees a musical instrument. Though she claims none of Dax's hosts had even the slightest musical ability, she is able to get music out of it. She plays a tune, but is frustrated she can't get it right. She gets obsessed by it, has trouble concentrating, and starts behaving violently. When she gets hallucinations of a masked man who looks familiar, she is even more determined to find out what the music is, and Cisco suggests running it through the Federation database. Bashir discovers Jadzia's isobramine levels are down. Excuse me, try that again. Bashir discovers Jadzia's technobabble.
Isoboramine.
Sorry, I was just going to say technobabble levels are down, and neurotransmitters between host and symbiont. Bashir has no clue why, and he sees no alternative than to take her to Trill, where doctors of the Symbiosis Commission will examine her. Yeah, this is another just really great episode of self-discovery. I just want to point out, though, the implications of what we see here. The fact that, you know, Captain Cisco, Captain Dad, so to speak, although a bit, I don't know, definitely more on the captain side of that phrase than the dad side, unlike, you know, Anson Mount, which is basically dad first, captain later. Here we see he puts together an entire military operation just to get one of his crew members the care that she needs. I mean, really think about the implications. He gets the Defiant, so we have to crew up the Defiant, to take time away from the station, so he's got to put Kira in charge, put the station on, you know, station's got to function without the personnel that won't be there. And then take the ship, the new toy, all the way to Trill. And it's like, there's a lot of moving parts just for one person. Because as we learned in Star Trek 3, while the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one, sometimes the needs of the one outweigh the needs of the few.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I love that we finally got some images of Trill and how it looks. And dude, if you're gonna do a Star Trek conspiracy episode, this is a pretty good one to do.
Yeah.
Right? The hallucinations feel horrific and uncanny. You know, they feel like something that people who have talked about having hallucinations before would talk about. Right? We get some crazy, you know, space, you know, worm stuff. And, you know, you can't ask more from this episode, right? We get Cisco being the dad. We get Bashir being the I'm stuck with a weird medical mystery, what the hell kind of stuff. You know, we get a lot of good pieces. And we also get to see the friendship. Not like the sexual tension stuff that we were getting in the first two seasons between Dax and Bashir, but we're getting the friendship between the two of them building now. And that almost feels better and a little more organic between the two of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Tiny but Fierce writes in, the Federation signed dozens of stupid treaties that didn't allow the integration of most of the weapon systems of their enemies. Right, that is correct. Yeah, absolutely. Good point.
Yep.
Thank you, Tiny but Fierce, for the contribution.
Which
That was
goes
always
back to my
frustrating.
point about not being a cornerstone of like mature diplomacy. Like mature diplomacy isn't let's just swear not to use these weapons because that's immature. Like that's not knowing your enemy. That especially knowing the Klingons, especially knowing the Romulans. Like,
Yeah, let's we are pressed
yeah.
for time. Let's keep the discussion on this episode real quick. So
I agree.
So, yeah, I mean, this was a pretty badass little conspiracy episode. We got some great characterization moments. And I mean, yes, the Defiant was really more of like, instead of like, you know, Cisco's pimp hand here, it was more like, you know,
A Silt
Cisco's,
Strider.
you know, Cisco's dad, you know, van to get the kids to the
A
park.
Silt Strider.
Yeah, right. But it worked, right? And you know, like I said, we got a good little conspiracy, and it turns out no, it's actually 8 lifetimes. So hey, there we go.
yep. So it turns out she actually does have some musical talent. But John, so looks like season 3 was your launching point, just not quite the exact moment that we thought it would be. We were just off by 2 episodes. So, what are your expectations or hopes for where do you think this show is going? Why don't you give us some theories and we'll just politely nod and not answer either way.
Well, so like, I have like theories that are like, yeah, it's escalating power force, escalating power imbalance, episodes where things get crazy and nobody expects it, and all those things are like, I watch way too much television for any of this stuff to be new to me. What I want to actually see is more of this. Like, I want to, like, because like one of the things I've been doing a lot with modern media, especially when they're running around trying to say that like they're focused on helping people bridge the gap between all of these communities and all that stuff. But like, if you watch the rhetoric, it's a lot of like bullying and self-aggrandizing and just bad. And so like, that's why those shows aren't working. Cause like some of them nail it. And can't name off any off the top of my head, but like when they do work, like people keep watching them over and over again. But like, dude, 3-hour updates on phones, man.
Well, Petey commented that Gowron didn't make the eyes. I think if you take a look right here.
There's some good eyes.
Well, guess I'm reading the ingredients to the air freshener can again.
Yeah, exactly. But to me, like I don't know, like even the costume work and stuff like that, like I do like that. But like I want to know what they do with space in terms of these challenges, the space conspiracies. Like, how do you do a fun space conspiracy where like the alien species matters to the equation rather than it just being like a whodunit, and none of that super matters technically because it's like,
and then everything just resets and you just move on to the next story.
Yeah, like I don't know. I really like the idea of these, like I like these episodes where like the characters matter. Yeah, and I really want to see how they continue to matter because like you guys actually have real love for them. And I don't think that happened on accident. And I also don't think that happened because of cognitive bias to the brand. Like, I don't think the brand is why you love Cisco or why you give a shit about Bajor.
All right, real quick. What Tiny But Fierce has written in, you have not defined maturity at all. Would you like to try and take a second to clarify?
Yeah, maturity, as I define it, is learning from all the lessons. Learning... even the ones where like, yeah, there were grotesque, evil things that happened, there were also like things to be learned.
Well, yeah,
not necessarily things to be replicated, but like know your enemy level things. Like if this can happen on Earth, then it can absolutely happen at a worse scale elsewhere. And I think that's like I think that's like what Cardassia represents, is an evil that matured the wrong way, you know?
I get it. I get it. This discussion tonight has just been fantastic, and everything about even just everything that we slugged out through season 1 and 2, which wasn't really a slug out. That was nice to have too.
It's important. No. That's important world story. Like we got to see a lot of growth in these characters, and that's why what's happening to them now matters. We're now
stepping into why this is the area as to where DS9 starts to set itself apart and why it is the peak Star Trek. Because like I often say, TOS and TNG are the idea. They're the standard. They're the best of the best. They're what the standard is fully realized. The reality is the utopia isn't there, and it still takes time. Where that's where DS9 comes in and shines, because it starts to show us the various aspects of how we get to everybody, you know, basically living the TNG TOS, and all the stuff you just said about.
In that instance, then yeah, I agree. it's phenomenal, all the marks checked. But like to me, like what Roddenberry wrote and what his ultimate goal was to assume that like, okay, we are the peak because in this point in my story, we peaked. But then every single show is like, no, we didn't. Or this new, like to peak isn't to just peak at being nice. Like you're not the nicest guy and then you're perfect forever and everybody likes you. No, like once you're the nicest guy, now you have to go into the meanest places and see if you can stay nice. Like, and if you do stay nice, now it's like you're the honorable guy. And if you're the honorable guy, like, can you go into the dishonorable places and remain honorable? And if you do that, now you're the hero. And if you're the hero that can do that, will you teach others?
Yeah.
And that I feel like is the part that like I want more out of Star Trek, but I do understand like writing limitations and mental limitations. Like, I wish
Tiny but Fierce writes in, follows up, and says, this is lore historically inaccurate. It is a modern demoralized chip on your shoulder trying to push our issues onto the Federation. The entire conversation hasn't made sense. I think we need to clarify, Tiny but Fierce, if it hasn't already. Pollo Zapatos is actually on his first run of Deep Space Nine. He very recently finished a TNG rewatch, and so he's basically analyzing this just for the first time, from the perspective that he can, and maybe that'll help clear.
These are raw thoughts. Don't take any of this as like me trying to.
Right, we don't really make super declarative statements in this show.
Yeah, and I'm always willing to change my opinion, and if you stick with us, please do. Like I change my opinion like all the time. I love it because that's who I am. I'm still changing. I'm not set.
That means you're changing.
That means you're what's the word? Maturing. Maturing.
Hey, there we go.
But yeah. All right, we are winding down to what looks like the last 2 minutes. I want to take a quick minute to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Tiny but Fierce, Donnie Pearson, Rancor Steve, Skogly Jotun. Yeah, I know he's on the panel. I'm hilarious. Shut up. Thank you guys all for contributing to the discussion. Really great conversation topics overall. And this is what helps. Like, yes, we could easily sit here, the five of us, turn the comment section off and run. If we're going to do that, we'll just turn off the cameras. This will just not even stream. We do this because we want to get your guys' input, and we know how valuable it is to have that sort of, you get a little bit of a safety net, being in a comment section, not having your camera up here. So if it's easier for you to spread and share your ideas through us, you've come to the right place. We don't ban ideas. We have to play the game with legality, but we don't ban ideas, we don't censor, and we don't attack people. We attack ideas, but we don't attack people. So yeah, I want to thank you all for your continued support, especially our lurkers. We appreciate you guys as well. And everybody who watches on replays, everybody who listens to our podcast, you help give us more reason. We come back anyway, but it's always nice to have a little extra motivation knowing like, hey, who's going to pop in? Who's going to steer the discussion? I had a great time tonight. I hope you all did too. Any last final thoughts?
Tiny but Fierce, you're the reason I do this. I have wanted to be challenged, and I love that it's coming from you, the audience. So
come back next week. We'll talk about it some more.
Yeah, be awesome to each other, people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Next week we are going to be doing Silo, DS9, and maybe something else. We'll find out. This has been a presentation of the Writer Brothers Tuesday Night Live Show. The Writer Brothers, restoring respect into discourse.